Uh, Abstract brainwaves, game genie in the beanie. We ain't on the same stage, leveled up.
In this day and age, many of us do a lot of shopping, and we do some of it online. That continues to increase year by year. Some of us get items on eBay or Amazon. Check out Anywheres. The prices may be cheaper there. Where is Anywheres? Anywhere is at Anywhere Shopping on Facebook. Check it out. Support your small independent business. The shipping rates are fast, they're fair, prices are also fair. They may even be cheaper than your popular places. Give it a look if you can. It also supports Captain Sensation. Thank you. Other yellow hat guy here, back with another video. And as promised in the gaming news video I made, there's overlap between Spider-Man video game and Spider-Man the movie, comics, all of that. Let's talk about that right now, shall we? Okay, so here's the breakdown. For the 5 of you who aren't into the comics and the movies, or more importantly the movies at this point, Marvel went through a bankruptcy period, right? They sold their movie properties to different studios to hope to rekindle some of this cash flow that they were lacking. They sold off XMen, Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider, Daredevil, Punisher. All those went to like Fox Studios, I believe. Okay? And the deal is, if you don't make a certain amount of movies with those properties in a certain amount of years, those movie rights would revert back to the parent company, Marvel. Marvel made a big mistake in selling, in my opinion, those movie properties to Sony. Sony got Spider-Man, arguably their most popular hero. He's not on the power level of Superman, but he's on the top tier list. Superman's DC's best character. Spider-Man is definitely Marvel's. You know, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Superman, Batman. I think it's like that. Just my opinion, though. So that being said, Sony went on to do a series of Spider-Man films. Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 sold well, even if the third one wasn't all that great. Looking back, I think the second one it still holds up. The other two, not so much, but the third one, it wasn't as evil as people said it was, but it was definitely the end of that franchise. There should have been a fourth one because it still sold well enough for it, but it didn't happen. So that being said, Marvel eventually was bought by Disney. So, you know, in a pattern of buying up franchises, Disney now has, you know, their Pac-Man just eating all these pills, which are different franchises. You know, they've got, you know, Marvel, they've got Star Wars, they've got so many other things. They now have purchased out Fox. So now they've got the rights back to Fantastic Four and Marvel with that massive deal that they did, okay? When I say Fantastic Four and Marvel, I mean Fantastic Four and XMen, which is still Marvel. But you get where I'm going with this, right? They've got that. And it took a lot of effort for them to get it, because when you look at those Avengers movies, it's not really how they would have been had Marvel had all their toys in the toy box. You gotta understand that the Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos' possession was so immensely powerful that they had to have all those other characters that weren't in the films there. Wolverine, the X-Men, all the Avengers, Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, everybody just coming after this guy, not just who you saw in these movies. So they still did a great job. Marvel did the best they could, as they always do, with their films as of late. Sony, they did a good job with Into the Spider-Verse. It won an Oscar, right? That doesn't mean Venom was fantastic. I enjoyed Venom. It was a good movie. I almost said it was a great movie. But, you know, it's not Citizen Kane of superhero movies or anything. Part of it is it did way better. It did much better than anticipated by its audience, and it was much better than what the critics gave it credit for. It was an entertaining movie. Tom Hardy did a stand-up job. It helped that he didn't have somebody like Kirsten Dunst as his, companion love interest in the movie as well. And whoever the actress is, she did a great job in her role, giving believability in that character as well. She-Venom was awesome. So, let's get back on to where this is going, okay? Since Sony was selling well with their movies, Marvel wasn't really in the position to say, hey, you're flopping, let's take this back. Okay, so Sony recently had the Venom movie do well, but what happened in between the first 3 Spider-Man movies, the Venom and the Into the Spider-Verse movie? The 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies. Those didn't sell as well as Sony wanted them to. Why? And this is my opinion. Andrew Garfield looked too cool. You can't have a too cool Peter Parker. You can have a cool Spider-Man, which he was. He was great. And he was better than Tobey Maguire at being Spider-Man, but he wasn't as good as Tobey Maguire as being Peter Parker. And I'm sorry, if Peter Parker has cooler shoes than I do, I'm not watching the movie anymore. I'm there because I paid for it, because I like Spider-Man, but I've already checked out. Like, that's not my Spider-Man. His hair, I don't know. I shouldn't even get into any of that. None of that's important. What is important is this. They couldn't continue the series because they didn't feel confident enough in the actor. So where does that bring you? Sony wasn't going to let go of that property. Not at all. They would keep making terrible Spider-Man movies if it meant anything. See, unlike the XMen movies that continually bombed, Spider-Man wasn't on that level. Meaning, it's hard to really do a bad Spider-Man movie. The crux is there. There's not a lot of movers and shakers like there are in the X-Men films, right? You do a bad Wolverine, it's going to taint the rest of the characters. You do a bad Spider-Man, will it taint the rest of the characters? Yes, but all you have to do is get Spider-Man right, even if everybody else is so-so, and people will still show up in droves to see it. Now the backlash is this. Why didn't Sony play nice with Marvel after they already did in letting him be in the MCU for these Infinity War movies? Sony, don't you see the benefit of having Spider-Man in the MCU? You get that camaraderie, that branding, that cosign from Marvel, so that it rubs off on your development of your strategy, or not your strategy, but of your franchise. From what I understand, Sony's not the bad guy. Now hear me out, because I'm upset just like the rest of you. I don't want to see the movies end. I like Tom Holland. I think he's a perfect mix of Peter Parker, and he's funny in the Spider-Man outfit. And I look forward to a possible Spider-Man and Deadpool team up. But here's the deal. Sony financed both Spider-Man Far From Home and the aforementioned, or not aforementioned, but the previous movie, Spider-Man Homecoming. They paid for pocket out of all of that and let Marvel do what they wanted to do. Both of those sold well. I think the last one sold close to, if not more than, $1 billion. That's pretty good. That's very good. They did very well. So maybe Sony's got their collar popped and they're like, yeah, we don't need you guys now. We know what to do. We've got Brian Michael Bendis' script, and we're going to go from there and do our own thing for this next movie. But where does that leave Spider-Man in Phase 4, since that was the last Phase 3 movie? Well, they didn't announce anything else for Spider-Man, so we really don't know. But what we did understand was Tom Holland was at least in talks for 2 more movies after Spider-Man Far From Home. 2 or 3 movies. Either way, multiple pictures, and he's young enough to where he could have added on another 2 or 3 more pictures. And it felt like, if you saw Far From Home, spoilers if you haven't, you've got 3 seconds to click off. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I know I did those numbers out of order. But he was the heir apparent to Iron Man. right? He was going to take over and be the brains of this franchise, at least until, or this franchise, of this universe, until Mr. Fantastic showed up, till Doctor Doom showed up, because they're coming. He's supposed to be that guy. And with him out of the picture, it's like, well, what do you do now? Now, does that mean that the talks are dead and over? I don't think so, but here's what actually happened from what I understand. Because Sony fit the bill for all that, and maybe in their feelings and their confidence, Marvel was also in their feelings, because it's two to tango, two sides to every story and all that, right? Marvel was getting only 5% back from the profits after these movies were made. It didn't sit well with them. Marvel wanted a better deal. Can't blame them for it, but Sony is like, wait, we own all of this, and now you want to split it 50-50? What Marvel wanted was, hey, we co-produce the movies 50-50, we get the revenue from them 50-50. Sony kind of pulled a Nintendo and backed out of the deal, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's not on the same level. I know some Sony execs are grasping their heart like, how dare you compare us to those guys and how badly they did us back in the day. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, use that Google foo and figure out Sony and Nintendo relationship. I digress. Moving back into Marvel and Sony. At this point, Sony gave Marvel an inch and Marvel wanted to take a yard is what happened. So it's really Marvel that you've got to look at and say, hey guys, maybe instead of the 50%, could you negotiate it at 25 instead of going for half? Like, yo, that's a huge step. That is a huge step. So we'll see if they work it out. I'm sure something will have to happen, because how do you have Nick Fury and all these characters in the second movie, and then you all of a sudden don't have all those extra characters? Like, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I know it's not going to work like they want if they were to make Spider-Man movies and not have that universe connected like they did before. I'm just really at a loss for words on what to add to that, because I'm thinking of the ending and how the movie ended, and it's like, wait, you gave teases of a connected universe within the MCU, and then you're just going to just not reference that anymore? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I feel bad for everybody involved who wanted to see all of this, but, you know, you've got the X-Men and Fantastic Four to look forward to, so we'll see if they work the Spider-Man stuff out. See you guys in the next one. Captain Sensation!